Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and as you can see today, we're going to be interviewing, and this is my dear friend, Keith. Hi, Keith.
Hello.
Going to be talking about what is the reason people are struggling with getting married when they're single. This phenomenon, which is what I call it, has been existing, I would say, for at least 20, 30 years now. And I think this generation is a bit tired of it. So we just want to talk about it, explore it, and see what some options might be. So, Keith, just going right to you. What do you think the reason is that so many single people who desire to be married are still single?
Speaking for myself, as a single woman who desires to be married, I haven't put a whole lot of effort into being married. A lot of people have told me this, friends, co-workers, what are you doing to meet somebody? I just go to work, I go to the gym, I go to church. Well, you got to put yourself out there. And I remember I had lunch with a coworker right before the pandemic, and she's sitting across from me and she's talking to me about relationships and you want to meet a man? Yes. You want to get married? Yes, of course I do. And she's like, why don't you cut your hair? Why don't you wear some makeup? Go buy some new clothes. And she didn't say she didn't say it like that. And she was coming from just a really sweet, sincere place. But she's very kind of straight to the point. And I'm like, okay. But her point was, if you want this, then you have got to go do something other than go to work and go to church and go to the gym. And so I think that's one of the reasons, just kind of a lack of inaction, kind of wanting something but not really doing anything about it. And then not knowing where to start, not knowing where to meet someone, and just being too busy, not making it a priority.
So I see what you mean. I think that without having a conversation with a group of people, it's potentially, I would hear people say, well, I try to make sure that I am the best I can be. I'm growing, always trying to improve myself. I've got a great career now, or I've got a steady job, or I'm a homeowner, and I've dated a few times and nothing's working out.
I read this book. It was a long time ago. And I think it was either The Millionaire Next Door and the author wrote two books, The Millionaire Mind and The Millionaire Next Door. And in one of those books, I read both of them. In one of those books, he was talking about wealthy people. And the author was saying that if you want to meet a wealthy person and marry a wealthy person, and this wasn't my motivation for reading the book. I didn't even know it was in the book, okay? But he was saying how, if you're in college and you want to get married, you want to meet somebody who's going to have a successful career, then you need to go and study in the at the library where those who are studying law or studying medicine are studying, right? You put yourself where those people are so that you can be noticed. And I read this book probably like 10 or 15 years ago. I haven't done any of that, but if you know the type of person you want, if you want somebody who likes to play golf, go to the putting range. If you want someone who's goes to church, go to church.
Where would you say you are at this point in your life as it relates to getting married? Like, how do you feel about your singlehood?
Well, that's a good question. So I want to be married, but I'm at the point now where I will either marry the right person or I will be single, and I will be happy being single. And if I get married, I will be married to the right person and I will be happy being married.
So you're content.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that want to get to that place, but they don't really know what that would look like to accept being single forever. So let's make a shift and just talk about what are some of the things that you may be aware of that people can practically do. I know you mentioned if I love golfing, and I think I would enjoy being with someone who's a golfer, then go to the golf course. And I think that in some prior conversations that we've had, we've actually kind of kicked that around. Like, if if I know that I love to paint or I'm an artistic person, then it might behoove me to show up in some places where people are doing things I like to do. Because the reality is, while we're not going to necessarily find boxy twins, and we all have heard that opposites attract, it still would be useful to say, let me really take an inventory of what it is I really like to do, and then find myself doing those types of things. Today, we look at 40-year-olds, and we easily see more single people at 40 than ever before. And when I talk to those single people, they're not like, oh, okay, Sarah, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm good either way. I hear a frustration and a disappointment that they thought not only would they be married by now, but they would have children.
You know, I thought I was going to be married at 27. I said, I'm going to be married before I was 27. I don't know, maybe 23, 24. I'm going to be married when I'm 27. 27 came and went. It's been gone a long time now. And, you know, over the years, I have met some very nice men, and I dated some okay guys. But looking back, I think I missed an opportunity. And I think I missed it because I was just not in the right mind space. I wasn't ready. This was a gentleman who I knew he was interested in me, but I just was so immature at the time, and he was a different race than I was. And so I wasn't even trying to consider that. But I think about him every once in a while, and I wonder, like, how's he doing? I'm sure he's happily married. Hopefully he's happily married. But, you know, if we're not where we want to be relationship-wise, are we not ready? Do we not have the maturity? Are our standards too high? Do we have the wrong priority? You know, I used to think that I want to be married to an African-American man, and that's no longer important to me. And I was like holding out for a Black man. Well, you know, if that happens, great, if he's Black, but if he's not, it's not my priority anymore. There are things more important than his race that matter to me now.
You said some things I wanted to comment on I thought were interesting. The main thing, it was a theme to all that you said, and the theme is self-awareness. Because you can look back and you can say, man, if I wasn't caught up in just having a Black man as a husband, maybe I wouldn't have passed up that other guy. But then again, there were other things you didn't know about you that would have impeded success in that marriage. And I think more people today who are single thought they would be married at 27, aren't married many years later, who have found a way to be content and not frustrated and not disappointed and not sad and not feeling less than in some ways. There's a midway that we have to get to. And that midway is to say, yes, I need to know how to be content when things don't go the way I thought they would. However, I also need to be able to step up and step out and make things happen that I thought might have happened a different way. I thought they would have automatically happened by the time I was 27, by the time I graduated from college, by the time I got my career, by the time I bought my house. But I think that what we're not always really considering is how hard did I work to get that job that I had? How strategic was I when I decided to become a homeowner? What did I put in place? Or did it just happen by osmosis? Because I think that we're kind of like making a mistake in that as single people, they're assuming that I'm just going to run into that person as I do my life. Mm-hmm. But if we think about the fact that I didn't run into my house, I didn't run into my degree, I didn't run into my job. Those are all things that I had different strategies that I put together to make that happen. And it was not just a decision I made or a few steps that I knew I needed to take, but it was some hard work and some uphill battles and all that I had to put in place to make those things come to pass. And when they finally did, in most cases, for most people, with all the successes that we see in life, it's like, boy, that was hard, but it was worth it. And I think that if we got that attitude now, because you said something earlier that I thought was really powerful. You said women there weren't so many opportunities. Wasn't all these women's lib type of awarenesses. Now, I was a little girl. My mom did talk about college, and she did talk about travel the world, and she wanted all of her children to experience the possibilities of life and fulfillment and realizations and dreams come true before we got married. So we got that pounded in our heads. But today, I think that a lot of people get that type of mindset, that type of exposure to thinking about what's possible, and they accomplish those things. But they, as a result, have had to sacrifice family life and the marriage. But we have to go back now and take that same energy, that same effort we put into those accomplishments and pursue our future with another person.
You know, Pat, I don't disagree. The dynamics of relationships change with each generation. And this millennial generation, I was doing some research a few weeks ago, looking at some of the census data, which was showing that, you know, our population is graying. Our population is getting older. We're going to have more older people in our population than, you know, people that can really sustain that older population, you know, as far as Social Security and Medicare. And it's the first time in our history that we're at this point. The working age is dwindling and the retirement age population it's exploding basically. So that's kind of concerning, but that's not what this is all about. One of the reasons why the working age population is shrinking is because people are deciding to not have babies. And this is millennial generation, and people are deciding to wait longer to get married. And then once they get married, they're like putting off having kids. And people are deciding not to get married and instead to cohabitate, right? And so, you know, so that's the younger generation. That's not our generation, but you have our generation. For single women in our age group who are wanting to be married, I'm wondering if the single men in our age group, if they are currently married or if they have been married and they're divorced and they're saying, I don't want to get married anymore. I'm done. You know, I've met men who, my age, our age, who that's their stance now. They were married once, maybe twice, and they don't want to get married again. And so you have this population of men, this demographic who have that position. But the female demographic, they're like, I want to be married. I've never been married. Oh, well, sorry to hear that. I've been married. I don't want to be married again. And so these single women are left out here wanting to be married to, you know, but the men, they're equals or, you know, the people in their age group are like, the men who have been there and they've done that, they got the t-shirt, they don't want another one, that type of thing.
I think probably that is an issue to a degree because there's always more women. Women live longer. I don't say that, but they live longer. And I know in Atlanta, way back when I lived there was 6 women to 1 man. So if one man's saying I'm good or I'm interested in something else,
he's like, yeah, I'm good. 6 women to 1 man, I'm good.
That's a big loss if he says I don't want to get married again. But I believe that I think this world is big enough for us to actually accomplish everything we want to accomplish. I think that it just works out that way. I think that our Maker was powerful enough that he put enough of everything on this earth that everybody has. It's enough. But you have to, believe that you deserve it. You have to believe you can have it. And then you have to go after it. You have to figure out and go after it. I have to be careful with that because, again, I'm not ever promoting desperation. But what I am saying is, again, just like we look for the job, look for the house, whatever we look for, got the degrees, we had to put work into that and we had to put strategy into that. And then we accomplished our goals or we gave up. And so that same effort, that same energy, that same dogma, that same determination has to go into saying, you know what, I'm older than I thought I would be by the time I got married, but I still want to be married. And so let me make sure I'm becoming the best I can be and let me be clear about what it is that I want. And then let me start figuring out ways to make that happen.
I get in these moods every once in a while where I'm going to go and I'm going to be proactive about this, right? And so I told you what my current stance is on online dating. I've tried it before and it wasn't, a horrible experience. And I haven't done online dating since then. But every once in a while, Pat, I will get into a mood where, okay, I'm going to go sign up for this dating site, right? And so the last time this happened, it was probably a few months ago, and I went on site. But I only get so far into like the 100 or some questions they want to ask you. I'm like, okay, I'll come back to this.
Wow, really?
I mean,
it's just questions.
It's maybe it's not 100, but it seems like it's a lot, right? And then you have to, give them. And if I get through the questions, it's always, what's your opening line, or give us a few sentences about how wonderful you are, and what's so special about you. And I'm just sitting there, okay, like how. And it's a lot of work. And so I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. And then a few months will pass, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this again. And so it's that cycle. But I need to try something new. I need to do something different.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, we use Google for so many other things. There's some research that can be done to talk about ways to meet people other than online dating. Online dating works for some people. Many, many years ago, I worked in Boeing, and one of the people in my department announced that she was getting married, and I was curious because at the time I was single, and I asked her, I said, "How did you meet him?" And she said, "We met online, Dad." And I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." She said, "He works at Boeing too." They got married, and they were the best of friends. It was a wonderful relationship, at least, from the outside. Looking in, I haven't seen her in years, so I don't know how they're doing, but I bet they're still together because I have some other theories about what makes not only a relationship happen, but what makes it stay together and what gives it success. And so that's one. I was reading this article that Bustle wrote, and they were talking about how do people meet other people. And they gave some statistics on ways that people can meet. And so the top way was through friends. And I thought that was very interesting because that's a safe way. Your friends love you. Your friends are not going to turn you on to some crazy person that they know has a sordid history where you would be at risk emotionally or physically or any of that. And so just like employers like to hire people that their employees know already, it's safe and probably the best way to meet people through other people that know you and they've introduced you.
That's a good point. And it reminds me of, there was a guy that I worked with, an engineer, a real nice guy. He retired, but this happened before he retired from the company, or a friend of mine. And I decided that he would be a good match for a friend of ours. And so this friend and I decided we were going to hook them up. We did. And they were like a year later, they're like, we're getting married. And they've been married to this day. And they have a beautiful relationship. And, he was a widower. His first wife had passed away. And, and it was quite a bit of time after she had passed away that, we were able to bring those two together. And it was a match made in heaven. And I was just so thrilled that, that relationship worked out and that they decided that they were meant to be together. So,
yeah, that's a beautiful example of that. I'm going to give you one more that Bustle said. They said 15% of the population of people met through work. And so that's another phenomena that we face today that we didn't face 30, 40 years ago. It's always been somewhat of a preference that the employer had that you would not fraternize at work because we know how awkward that can be. But at the same time, if you're with a company like, say, Apple, it's big enough, maybe both of you work there, but you don't work in the same department. You're not seeing each other every day. You're not doing the same jobs. And that makes it more feasible. And so again, we have to show ourselves friendly. We have to, especially these days, because being females and doing whatever it took to get the education, get the experience, the know-how, and now you're in a company and maybe you're up the ranks. You don't have to be a vice president or anything, but even if you're a supervisor or an individual contributor that's making six figures, men can easily get intimidated because the tradition is they pursue and the woman accepts. And so if they pursued a couple of ways, a couple of times in near timelines and got turned down, and then they see you and you're just a mover and a shaker, they can easily get intimidated and shrink back. And then sometimes strong women don't want to be bothered with shrink back men because they figured, I'm not going to shrink back in our whole relationship. And if you can't handle me now, to just ask me out for coffee, I don't know what to say. I don't know if I want to be bothered. So it's a pretty intimidating situation. So I think that we really have to kind of even out, equalize the whole approach of, am I really serious? Do I know who I am now? Am I ready to make a commitment? Will I be able to maintain who I am, but be flexible enough to be a partner in a relationship? And if I can answer affirmative to all those questions, then maybe I can be friendly and I can show him that it's safe for him to make a major move, but at least put myself out there. But again, we know 2 ways so far. We don't have to unpack all of them, but we know that friends and work are options.
The workspace as a potential place to meet a mate, a husband, boyfriend, whatever. So it can be tricky to date somebody that you work with. It's tricky in that if the relationship doesn't work out, you still have to see that person.
Yeah.
And if you're on the same team or in the same organization as that person, that's even more trickier. But you know what, on the flip side, if everything works out and the relationship lasts and you end up getting married, I mean, that's sweet, right? That's goodness. But you don't know going into it, if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. I have been interested in a person that I've worked with, and we had gone out to dinner and we, gone out to the movies and hung out. It didn't work out between the two of us. Fortunately, it wasn't a very awkward situation. We were actually in the same organization and we remained friendly and respectful to each other. He was a really nice person. It would have been nice, I guess, if it would have worked out, but it didn't.
Next time we can have men in here with us so that we can have their perspective. And I love your wisdom about, we can't really speak for them. We can guess around, but at least we have some strategies that people can possibly employ to get closer to that place they want to be. If you want to be married, there's online all day long. That's the convenience, especially in the pandemic. They even got commercials about how you can do the dating online with the pandemic.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that. All right.
Well, anyway, I hope you all got something out of this. Please hit the subscribe button so that you can hear regularly things that I'm talking about. Again, it's all things relationships. So we deal with self-development, friendships, dating, marriage, and business relationships. And if you hit the bell, then when I upload, you'll get a notification that I've uploaded. And please do a like. That always helps the channel out. And I just hope that you have a glorious next 7 days. And I'll see you back here next week. Bye. Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.